Welcome to C&S-Sports, everyone. I'm Sam Deering. He's Christian John, and we're excited to have you with us for this part two of the free agency special. So Kawhi Leonard has finally made his free agency decision. Quite a few teams that were held back, including the Lakers, um, due to his decision and delaying it. But he finally chose to go to the Clippers, and according to Woj, so Woj said that he would have told he wanted Paul George. So if the Clippers never would have got Paul George, he would have stayed in Toronto. And I guess what how do you like to fit in LA? What do you think about that?
It's obviously where he wanted to be. That's home for him. And now he gets to be the guy on his own team. But this year he has help. Last year he was the guy too, obviously, but he kind of had to carry that Raptors team. And then it was one other player would give him some help.
Right.
And now he has Paul George. Now he has Lou Will. Now he has Montrezl Harrell and Pat Beverly. The one concerning factor I have for the Clippers team is I don't really know who'll be their main distributor, because when you look at that team, there's not really a great passer. Obviously, I don't think that will derail them a ton, but it is something to look out for, as who's really going to make the plays for them other than Kawhi and Paul George.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and I don't think anyone saw Paul George like that trade coming at all. That was obviously Kawhi. If he would have went on his own to the Clippers, so he would have been in the situation basically all over again happened in Toronto, which is why that, according to reports before this happened, he supposedly gave the Clippers a call and said, "I'm not coming to LA. I'm now narrowing it down to the Lakers and the Raptors." And because of him delaying his decision, the Lakers almost were forced to delay the Anthony Davis trade to go after Kawhi and sign him to a max contract. But I definitely like the fit. To personally, as a basketball fan, I like him better on the Clippers. It makes a lot of sense for him to go to the Lakers. I think he fits well in LA. It'd almost be like a new super team there. But I really like the way that the NBA, that the free agency has been set up now, where there's no one super team. There's a bunch of guys teaming up. And I like it a lot. I think that's going to make the NBA a lot more exciting. So that leads us into the Lakers, as we were talking about earlier. So, as we've brought up before, they almost had to delay the AD trade because they wanted to sign Kawhi. And now, according to reports, LeBron is now moving to point guard, which I think will be an interesting move. I don't see him having any problem with it, seeing as he's one of the best to ever play the game. But they signed Boogie Cousins. I kind of saw that coming, to be honest. They have Rajon Rondo, they love Kuzma still, and then they have other bench players like Jared Dudley. They've really, I think the Lakers, yeah, they lost out on Kawhi, but I really think they've utilized their free agency moves quite well. What do you think?
Yeah, like you were saying, they pick up Boogie, Rondo. They bring in a guy like Dudley. They also brought back JaVale McGee. They brought in KCP, and really their big prize of free agency went from possibly Kawhi Leonard or D'Angelo Russell to Danny Green. And I do really like Green's fit here in LA. He's a pretty good 3-and-D player. He definitely helped the Raptors a ton last year, and I think this is really going to work out for the Lakers. Personally, I think the Lakers right now have a better roster than the Clippers, just because I think they have more depth, and I still see it as LeBron's a better distributor and he'll be a much better playmaker than what the Clippers currently have. So that's definitely something to look out for. I'm so excited that Kawhi did spurn the Lakers because now there is not that super team of LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Kawhi Leonard. Now we have probably 8 teams who could win a championship this year, and I'm definitely here for that.
Right, and I think it's weird to say or to think about is there were reports saying that Kawhi never wanted to play with LeBron. He never wanted a super team, which I have to respect that. And like, not saying LeBron never wanted one, but LeBron barely had any. He barely had any help his first year in the Lakers. So I think it's very. I love the fact that other guys like KD and Kyrie, which we'll get to later, are teaming up. Um, you have the Sixers, who you have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. You have that lethal defense and Tobias Harris and now Al Horford. I think it's very interesting, and now I think this free agency just made the NBA a lot more interesting, and I think they're going to get a lot more viewers than they already had. Personally, I've always liked college basketball better than NBA, but I might even have to switch that opinion now. So this next season is going to be very interesting. So that leads us to D'Angelo Russell. So I personally love the fit to the Warriors. There were rumors that he was considering going back to the Lakers. He was open to the idea. And I liked that. I I liked Kyrie going to the Nets a lot. I personally think they should have kept D'Lo and moved him to shooting guard, seeing as he has the experience of playing that before. But I love D'Lo's fit to the Warriors. I think he's a great shooter. I my only iffy is I would not give him that contract. I wouldn't give him a max deal right away. I would say he's about worth I would say a Malcolm Brogdon deal with a 4-year, 84 mil. But Klay Thompson's out. You don't even know if he'll see the floor. And definitely, I think D'Lo is going to be a solid replacement for Klay Thompson for well into the season for in regards to shooting. What do you think?
D'Lo is my guy. I mean, he is one of my favorite players in the league, and I personally am interested to see the fit with him and Steph Curry because I want to see who's going to be the primary ball handler. I get they'll both have the ball in their hands a lot, but D'Angelo, I think, is a better passer at the moment than Steph, and that could really benefit Steph having another guy who could break down the defense and kick it out to him for threes and things of that matter. And once Klay Thompson comes back, it'll just be nice to have another guy like D'Lo who can make his own shot because they lose that in KD, but they get it back with D'Angelo.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and there were rumors that there were about 3 or 4 teams looking at him because their initial instinct was to trade him, and I really think that the Warriors will regret trading him if they actually end up doing. And I think if they traded him, they would have traded him already. So I think at this point, free agency is about slimming down now at this point, as in regards to big player names. So I think the Warriors are. I think they're winning big right now. Not compared to other teams, but I think they're winning big right now in free agency, and I think D'Angelo Russell was a great pickup for them. And that leads us into the Brooklyn Nets. And so there's been a lot of rumors laying out there. Yeah, we know that KD and Kyrie both signed, or actually Kyrie signed the max deal. KD took a pay cut to bring in for the Nets to bring in DeAndre Jordan. But now, if you read the rumors the other day, or I guess reports, KD posted on his social media account that he said, "I'm going to Brooklyn," but he's barely had any contact with them ever since. And now there's some posts or some people thinking that it's going to be short lived. So I think that'll be interesting to see. Maybe worry as a Nets fan, but I don't see it being a huge impact. In regards to KD teaming up with Kyrie, what are your thoughts on that?
I was surprised somewhat that KD really did fully commit and he is going to the Nets. It's very interesting to me that he was so, I guess, swayed by the fact that he was injured, because people had made it sound like he really wanted the Knicks, and then the Knicks wouldn't offer him a max deal. So it kind of just left the Warriors and the Nets. And I believe KD is trying to change his narrative here. And that's why he ended up going to the Nets, because he was seen as almost a bandwagoner for going to the team that beat his Oklahoma City team in the Western Conference Finals. So I'm picturing Kevin Durant's mindset was to take back the narrative by going and leading a team with his friend Kyrie Irving, and also another friend in DeAndre Jordan comes to join them and joins an already deep team that I think that will make it a lot easier for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It's not like they went to a team like the Lakers, or it's not like Kevin Durant went to a team like the Lakers that had no really role players. They had the role players in place to win a championship, and now all Kevin Durant has to do is worry about is getting healthy. I like this for Kevin Durant, and I like this for the Nets. I like this for the Nets because they kind of get to stick it back to the Knicks, who have been ruling that region of the country for a long time over the Nets. So this is kind of cool. Little brother finally won in free agency, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And from what we've also been hearing is Katie never wanted to play in that last game, in the finals. So he was forced to play. There might be more to that story.
I don't buy that personally.
You can tell. I don't know. I kind of buy it, but like I really like.
How did they force him to play?
There's definitely more to that story that we don't know, and I guess you could also. There were also people saying, like, reports and Woj, that KD was supposedly frustrated with his entire situation. They said the same thing about Klay Thompson. Stephen A. actually said the same thing about Klay Thompson even during like the first stretch of the playoffs, and Klay Thompson signed a max extension. So at this point, I really don't know. I don't buy anything unless guys like Woj tweet it out, and the fact that he gets to stuff before Bleacher Report or coaching reports get it out should tell you something. But as far as KD and Kyrie teaming up, I think I think it'll be very interesting. The Nets they were already a playoff team. I think they just got a whole lot better.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
I mean, their only big loss is D'Angelo Russell, but go ahead.
I don't know if they're going to be that much better this year.
No, they're not. I agree with you, because I guarantee you KD won't see the floor. And I think what KD should focus on right now is not.
Oh, yeah. He's just worried about getting healthy.
Yeah, 100%. It's just getting healthy. He shouldn't be focused on anything else but that. So that leads us into the Knicks. And the Knicks definitely lost in free agency. I think they've been smart with some of their contracts, but they definitely lost in free agency. Julius Randle is probably one of their only big name players that they got. And now Marcus Morris signed with the Spurs. But there's been reports saying that he's now reconsidering the agreement, and he's considering joining the Knicks. And I just find it funny that everyone thought I never thought this was actually going to happen. Knicks were going to end up with the number 1 pick and get Zion, and then they had 2 max contracts to get, and they thought both KD and Kyrie would end up in New York, but yet they're together in Brooklyn. And quite honestly, I think that has a little bit to do with Dolan, their GM, because nobody wants to play for Dolan. That front office is a joke, and they have they have so much to work on. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league for quite some time, and I really don't know how to tell or what to say about RJ Barrett. I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but he's had a disappointing start to Summer League so far.
Summer League doesn't matter.
True, but I still think it's somewhat concerning. But the Knicks are rebuilding, even though they've been rebuilding for years. But Marcus Morris would be an interesting signing. I'm surprised any free agent available would even want to go play for the Knicks and just basically ruin their career. And now the Knicks scheduled a meeting with Kawhi when he was still out there, but they canceled it, afraid of losing out on other players. And quite honestly, there weren't many big names available, so they wouldn't have lost out on a whole lot. And now there's been rumors that I guess the Mavericks are one of them. Pretty sure the Knicks are looking at Giannis on the Supermax. I don't see Giannis leaving Milwaukee ever in his entire career. So what do you take of the whole Knicks situation?
I'm surprisingly going to stand up for the Knicks here. I think they made the best out of a bad situation. So that you don't get your big fish. So you get Julius Randle, who Julius Randle's somewhat underrated in my eyes. He's a good basketball player. You got him on a 3-year deal. $63 million. I do believe they have the team option for the 3rd year. And then you sign a bunch of hard-nosed basketball guys who are going to come in and work hard and try and help your young guys learn. And they set themselves up for 2021, which is the next big free agency class, which has Giannis, possibly Kawhi Leonard, possibly LeBron, possibly Paul George, Bradley Beal, CJ McCollum, Victor Oladipo, Blake Griffin, Rudy Gobert. The best they could do after not getting KD and Kyrie was to set themselves up to go, all right, let's get some high draft picks. Let's make ourselves better in these next 2 seasons, and let's try and make a run at 1 or 2 of those guys. So I definitely don't think it's as bad as people thought. As far as the Marcus Morris situation goes, that's kind of a weird deal to me. I get there's guys who have always wanted to play for the Knicks, so if that's what he wants to do, makes sense to me. I know I grew up always wanting to obviously play for the Bucks, so I think if I was a free agent and somehow the Bucks opened up free agency space for me, or cap space, excuse me, for me, and they called me up, I would definitely at least consider it. So I get where he's coming from. It's also more money for next season. That'll be interesting to see what he ends up doing.
Yeah, like I said before, I think the Knicks have been very smart with their contracts. I don't think they definitely lost out on some big players, but by smart I mean looking ahead for their near future in free agencies. So I'm not counting the Knicks out on necessarily, I guess, losing the free agency for the next few years. But I think they set themselves at a pretty good pace for the next 2 to 3 years of free agency. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do in years to come to improve their team. So that leads us to the Thunder trade, which included Paul George heading to the Clippers. And this is interesting. So the Thunder have first round picks up until 2026. They have about half of them are unprotected, and they have 2 pick swaps. So what do you buy of this whole Thunder Paul George trade?
This is another situation where Sam Presti had to make the best of a bad situation. Paul George comes to you and he asks for a trade. Now you have to decide whether you grant his wish or you have an unhappy superstar. He chose the former, and it was the right move. He got a bunch of draft picks. He got Danilo Gallinari, who they probably trade later on in the season because it seems as though Oklahoma City's not going to be doing much winning this season. And then they get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was the starting point guard on a playoff team in the West last year as a rookie. So I like that part of the trade. And then they trade Jeremy Grant to Denver for a first-round pick. So you add more first-round picks. And now all that's left really is possibly Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, and obviously the big one would be Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, and I think that could be another question coming to mind is if they keep guys like Steven Adams and Dennis Schroeder, I would personally keep him. I think they're decent guys to build off of. And I do think it's kind of hard to grade how the trade went for them. But they definitely got a haul, and they got 5 first-round picks. So if I'm looking at it now, I think they set themselves for the future, but it really depends where these picks fall and how they utilize them, whether they trade it for more quality picks. But I do think they set themselves future. But it really will depend on those picks. And now Russell Westbrook has told agents that he is open to the idea of trading. And the Miami Heat are one of the top teams that are interested in him. And personally, I think that would just be a weird fit. And I think that'd be a weird fit. And you'd have to trade. Goran Dragic would have to be in that trade, personally, I would think. And maybe Justice Winslow. The Heat are loaded with guards, which so I think it's interesting why the Heat are the most interested in him. But personally, I think he's going to be a Knick if he gets traded. I think the Knicks are or should be one of the top teams. I wouldn't say desperate, but I do think if you're looking to make one more move in free agency for them, seeing as they've been smart with their signings this season, other than losing out on big players, you got to look at Russ. And the question is who you give up, because the biggest value or asset you have at this point for the Knicks is giving up high draft picks. So what do you think of the whole Russ situation, and what are some teams that you think would fit, and what are your thoughts on the Heat on being one of the teams most interested in him?
The team I think Russ fits with the best is if the Thunder just sent him out there by himself and he tried to take the other team on 5-on-1. But realistically, I do like the idea of maybe the Timberwolves going to get him. If they could convince Oklahoma City to take on Andrew Wiggins, I think they'd win that deal right there. However, if they could unload the salary and get a guy like Russ to pair with Karl Anthony Towns, that'd be pretty nice. They also drafted Jarrett Culver, which was nice. So I would like that potential fit if you could move Wiggins in this scenario. I also that's about the only one I would say I like. I understand why Miami and New York would go after him, but I don't know if I'd say I like those fits. Like you said, it would be weird in Miami with him and Jimmy Butler. I don't know if those two could coexist.
I really don't. Yeah.
You would have
And
to hope they get along.
right.
And
And
obviously you do whenever you get any two stars, but those are big personalities.
yeah. And another team that's interesting to me is the Rockets. And they're talking about a James Harden, Russell Westbrook reunion. I'll let you go first on this one. What do you think of that one?
I'm not sold on those two playing together either. I don't know if there's enough basketball to go around for those two to play together. And I think that could get really clunky. Plus, you lose a lot defensively with those two. Russ plays aggressively, but I wouldn't call him a good defender. And we all know who James Harden is defensively.
Right. And I do think the character of Russell Westbrook has definitely changed throughout the year since he's played last with Harden and even KD. And now we do know that D'Antoni has made everyone available except for James Harden for trade. And then you hear reports of Chris Paul being frustrated with his situation and then denying rumors. And Chris Paul is and should not be that highest paid player on that Rockets team right now. We all know who it should be. So I am 100% with you. I don't buy it and I don't see it happening at all. And the fact that I don't want to say Chris Paul is toxic, but he definitely has a temper, and the fact that they can barely handle Chris Paul to the point where they're sending out reports that we don't even know is true. That Chris Paul wants to be traded, and Chris Paul's frustrated with the situation and with him and James Harden. How you can even handle playing with Russell Westbrook. I love Russell Westbrook. I respect his game, but we all know his character. So I think that's going to be every team looking at him. I think that's going to be all their biggest concern is his character and how he'll interact with other players on their team. So that is about it. Christian, is there anything you want to end on?
Nope, I'm pretty much free agency'd out.
Yeah.
I'm definitely ready to take next off season off with no big name free agents. So.
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely going to be less exciting next year. So that concludes the part 2 of NBA free agency special of C&S-Sports Cast. So don't forget to give us a follow on our Twitter. Christian is I Love Brent Suter, and I am Sam_Daring68. And give us a follow on our Twitter feed, which is CS Sports Feed 2. Our Instagram is CS Sports Feed, and our Facebook is C&S Sports Podcast. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next week.